The wind, a salty whisper across their faces, tugged at Gwendolyn's scarf as she and Liam stood at the edge of the deserted esplanade. The river, black ribbon under the ink-washed sky, slithered through the town, its surface catching the moonlight in 1,000 oily shards. The air was thick with the damp smell of mud and decay, a stark contrast to the sweet cologne Liam wore, a fragrance that seemed to fight for dominance. "Creepy, isn't it?" Gwendolyn said, her voice barely a whisper. Liam chuckled, his hand brushing against hers. "Just the usual coastal charm, love. Besides, you said you wanted an adventure." She nodded, but a shiver ran down her spine, unrelated to the chill. The river seemed to pulsate with a hidden life, its ripples whispering secrets in a language she couldn't decipher. The occasional splash, whether from fish or something more sinister, sent her heart into a frantic tap dance. They walked, their footsteps the only sound against the rhythmic gurgling of the water. The houses along the bank were dark, their windows hollow eyes staring into the night. Gwendolyn imagined skeletal figures peering back, watching their progress with silent malice. Suddenly, Liam stopped, his hand tightening around hers. "Look," he breathed, pointing across the river. A lone figure stood on the opposite bank, a silhouette against the moonlit sky. It was tall and thin, its arms outstretched like a mournful willow. Its head, if it had one, was lost in the darkness beneath a wide-brimmed hat. A prickle of dread ran down Gwendolyn's spine. The figure remained motionless, an unwavering sentinel against the shifting backdrop of the river. Liam, however, seemed strangely unafraid. "Probably just a fisherman," he said, his voice strangely quiet. But Gwendolyn couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was watching them, its sight piercing through the darkness, reaching into their very souls. She wanted to turn, to run, but Liam held her back, his grip strangely firm. The figure remained a cipher, a whisper in the moonlight against the canvas of the river. Gwendolyn couldn't tear her gaze away, the dread in her gut a constricting knot. Liam, sensing her unease, squeezed her hand, his touch a grounding anchor in the swirling vortex of her fear. They watched the silent figure for what felt like an eternity. Then, with a slow, deliberate grace, it raised its arm, pointing across the river, not towards the town, but further into the inky blackness where the river met the horizon. Gwendolyn's breath caught in her throat. The gesture was chilling, a cryptic message etched in the moonlight. Curiosity, a barbed hook, snagged her fear. She tugged against it, a desperate yearning to understand the meaning of the silent plea. She whispered, her voice trembling. "We need to go." He hesitated, his gaze lingering on the figure. His eyes, usually warm and hazel, were now pools of obsidian, reflecting the river's secrets. But then, with a sigh, he turned to her, his face etched with worry. They walked back, the silence broken only by the rhythmic gurgling of the river and the pounding of Gwendolyn's heart. The figure watched them go, its silhouette a stark contrast against the brightening sky. As they reached the edge of town, Gwendolyn glanced back. The figure was gone, vanished as silently as it had appeared. The rest of the day was a blur. Gwendolyn felt detached, her mind replaying the scene on the esplanade, the cryptic gesture, the unsettling weight of the figure's gaze. Liam, though, seemed oddly at ease. He joked, kissed her forehead, but his eyes remained shadowed, a depth in them that Gwendolyn had never seen before. That night she dreamt of the river, its murky depths swirling with whispers and secrets. The figure stood on the bank, its hat pulled low, obscuring its face. It pointed again, this time towards the horizon, where the river met the sky. She woke with a gasp, the dream clinging to her like a shroud. Liam was gone. The bed was cold, the covers untouched. Panic clawed at her throat, but then she saw it, a single note on the bedside table. "Meet me at the river," it read in Liam's familiar handwriting. "The tide will be high at midnight." Gwendolyn stared at the note, the words carving themselves into her memory. The river, the figure, the cryptic message, they were all pieces of a puzzle, one she desperately wanted to solve. But as she slipped out of bed, a chilling realization washed over her. The figure hadn't been pointing across the river. It had been pointing towards her.